Hi, I'm Catherine from Crime Scene. In today's video, I'm going to be doing something slightly different again. Normally when I do psychological analyses of offenders, the case is solved. However, as I am staying near to Rockingham Foreshore in Australia at the moment, I'm going to cover a case which has never been solved, and I will be commenting on some of the key psychological characteristics which occurred throughout that case. And so I've come to a place, I'm staying in a place called Safety Bay, which is just outside Rockingham. Because I'm in Australia, you will need to excuse me brushing the flies away from me. Any of you that have been to Australia will know the pain that causes. These flies are so invasive. They want to get into your eyes, into your nose, in your ears. They're just disgusting. Okay, so I'm staying in a place called Safety Bay, which is just outside Rockingham Foreshore. Rockingham is just outside of Perth in Western Australia. And it's such a beautiful, idyllic, peaceful place to be. Rockingham Foreshore is along a stretch of beach which has got lovely, beautiful cafes, bars and restaurants. In the summer months, it's really quite busy with people. The bars and restaurants tend to get a bit packed out, but in the winter months when it's a bit cooler, it does tend to be a little bit quieter. When I asked people about what Rockingham Foreshore was like in the 90s, they tell me that it was a lot more quieter. There weren't anywhere near as many bars and restaurants and cafes along that stretch, so it was a bit quieter of a place. But it is absolutely stunningly beautiful. Even the houses that people live in are absolutely beautiful here. Lovely houses with really well kept lawns, and there's not a piece of litter to be seen anywhere. It's just really beautifully kept. I come out for a walk along the beach in the morning and I'm greeted by dog walkers, by runners, by cyclists, by people just out for a stroll, and everybody wants to say a friendly good morning to you. It does seem like a very cohesive neighbourhood, and everybody is really friendly here. Which is why the case I'm going to cover today came as a little bit of a surprise to me. You certainly wouldn't expect a place as idyllic and beautiful as this to house some of the more horrific crimes. So when I learnt about the case which I'm going to cover today, it did come as a little bit of a shock to me that such a horrific case could occur in such a beautiful, quiet place as Rockingham Foreshore. Gerard Butler was an 11-year-old boy from Newman, and he came to Rockingham Foreshore with his parents on holiday in 1997. On the 14th of October 1997, Gerard Butler went missing. His family reported it to the police within a couple of hours, and they said to the police how unusual it was for the boy to go missing. It was out of character for him to go away and leave the family for even a short period, such as 2 hours. Within 2 days of the boy being reported missing, there were hundreds of police officers joining in the search for this young boy. And a lot of time, effort and resources went into looking for this boy. As we know with any police investigation, the initial hours and the initial days following the disappearance are the most important for gathering information, gathering evidence about possible suspects. And so within a couple of weeks, there were hundreds of people involved in this search. The police and the community put a massive amount of time, effort and resources into trying to find this boy. The police knocked on doors. They checked the files of local paedophiles, which were known in the area. They even checked the files and conducted interviews of some of the ships which had docked into a nearby shipping area. Eventually, they even got the Navy, which are housed on Garden Island, which is not too far away from Safety Bay and from Rockingham. They got them involved in the search for Gerard Butler, but to no avail. His body wasn't found within those initial couple of weeks. So after a couple of weeks, the police did begin to suspect that there could be some sort of foul play in the boy's disappearance. And so an era of somberness came into the search. They did begin to search all of the woodland, all of the undergrowth to look for the boy's body rather than signs or evidence of his disappearance, unfortunately. On the 28th of October 1997, a body was found. It was then confirmed to be the body of 11-year-old Gerard Butler. The body was found in a place called Carnup, in a pine plantation. And Carnup is about 20 kilometres from Rockingham Foreshore, and that would take around, say, 15 minutes to drive there. It's not within a walking distance, so it is a drive away, but it's not too far away. It was a man out who was exercising his horse which came across Gerard Butler's body and immediately reported it to the authorities. The body was still fully clothed. There was no real effort to cover up the body. And because there was no real effort to cover up this body, this suggests to me that the perpetrator, the murderer who killed him, would have known the area. They would have known that the place where they dumped the body was a fairly quiet place and people weren't likely to come across the body anytime fairly soon. So there was no evidence of trying to cover up the evidence or try to cover up that body in any way. Gerard Butler was found with money still in his back pocket, and what that tells me is that this is unlikely to have been any sort of robbery which had gone wrong. It's much more likely to have been an opportunistic attack. So Gerard Butler is most likely to have been in the wrong place at the wrong time, and the perpetrators took advantage of that and took him, killed him, and then dumped his body 20 kilometres away. The key psychological characteristics for me that stand out is that the perpetrator must have known both areas. They must have known Rockingham Foreshore and they must have known the area in which they dumped their body. Rockingham Foreshore can be fairly busy at times. There are always people along the beach, and so the perpetrators who took Gerard Butler must have been out seeking a victim at a time when they knew that they were less likely to be seen by any witnesses. And again, this reinforces that this must have been an opportunistic abduction and killing. And they must have known the location where they took the body to, because they took no effort. They made no attempts to cover up the body. They didn't even, take any money to make it look like a robbery gone wrong or anything like that for him. Once the post-mortem had been completed, the cause of death wasn't revealed to the police officers or to some of the police officers who were involved in this case because of the brutal nature of the killing. Excessive violence and mutilation can only be assumed at this point because the details were never released. However, these were experienced officers who come across a range of crimes, and so for the decision to be taken not to release details of the injuries on the boys' bodies suggests that they were quite horrific, excessive, and possibly mutilation of the boys' body. The police did say that they thought that this was a crime of opportunity and that the perpetrator must have acted in haste when attacking Gerard Butler. And from the level of violence and from what the police said, this suggests that it was a somewhat frenzied attack on the young boy. And what we know from frenzied attacks, from studies within psychology, is that the victim is likely to represent something or someone to the offender, to the perpetrator of the crime. This victim becomes someone or something in which the perpetrator acts out their emotions and expresses their emotions by the level of interaction with their victim. So the victim becomes a vehicle in which the perpetrator expresses these pent-up emotions within them. Police did reveal some months later that there was some evidence that a dog was involved or linked to the case because there were dog hairs found on the body when they were found it. Of course, I don't have any training in police work or forensics or investigations. However, I think that it would be unlikely that a dog would be there at the time of the abduction of the boy or even the killing of the boy, because a dog would make too much noise. A dog may bark at a struggle and so then would alert people or passers-by to turn and to look towards the scene of the crime, and then obviously it would be more easy to identify the perpetrators of the crime. So although there were dog hairs found on the body, I think it's very unlikely that a dog was actually present. What I think is more likely to have happened is that a dog had been in the back of the vehicle, which had transported Gerard Butler from Rockingham Falls to Locarno, and that's how the hairs were likely to have gotten on his body. It did briefly cross my mind whether it could be that a case that the dog had accidentally or opportunistically attacked the boy, and the owners were simply trying to cover up the fact that their dog had killed somebody. However, that thought quickly passed, because if there was evidence of any dog bites, the coroner in the post-mortem would have picked those up and would have certainly have reported those details. In April in 1998, a new witness came forward to say that she saw two men struggling with a young boy at the time of Gerard Butler's disappearance in Rockingham Foreshore. She said that she didn't feel comfortable interviewing and giving those details at the time, but she did come forward about 6 months later to give those details to the police. She said that there was a maroon covered station wagon, but also previous to that, a white ute had been reported as acting suspiciously in the area, and so that didn't really lead to any new investigations or new evidence or new leads for the police to follow up on, unfortunately. I would be tempted to suggest in this case that the murderer or murderers would already be likely to be known to the police. For somebody to carry out that level of violence and that type of frenzied attack, it's very, very unusual for that to be their first offence. So therefore, I would suspect that they would be likely to be known already by the police. Very often, offenders show some progression in their level of violence. So they'll start small. So it's perhaps he or they are likely to have been known for bar fights, getting in trouble on nights out when they've been drinking, or perhaps even for domestic violence, or for family violence, or for fighting in some way. In July of 1998, the police set up a press conference, and they were asking for a bit of information about a Yankee cap that the boy was wearing. And that Yankee cap was never recovered. It wasn't with the body, and it wasn't recovered anywhere in the extensive areas that they searched. It is extremely common when people kill for them to keep some type of garment or some type of memento of the killing. And the killers will then use that as a tool to recreate and to remember the excitement of the attack which they've conducted. And that's not unusual for many murderers, to take some item belonging to the victim or something that they can remember that attack by. Of course, I can't say for definite whether this is the case or not, but I would suggest that it's likely based on the amount of previous cases where personal items have gone missing and have been later recovered with the suspects. It's still appealing for information even today on the case, and there is still in place a $100,000 reward for any information which leads to an arrest in this case. Often many people don't report details because they think it would be insignificant. They might remember somebody acting suspiciously. They might remember seeing a vehicle which passed and think nothing of it at the time. They might have seen somebody walking their dog, and so they don't report it because it didn't seem that particularly strange. However, even one small piece of information could be make or break for any particular case. So if you were in Rockingham Foreshore in October 1997 and you didn't report anything which you thought was insignificant at the time, I urge you to please report it. Other people may have reported similar details, and they may just need corroboration from another eyewitness. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Watch out for each other. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.